Buenos dias, podcast listener. This is JJ Gordon, host of JJ Meets World. Notice we kept the Gordon out of the title just to confuse you that this might be a JJ Abrams podcast. My goal, to meet every person on the planet, maybe even JJ Abrams. So enjoy this episode. It features Scott Horvik. We get to talk about his acting background. We get to talk about how he met his wife. It's a great meet cute story. And we even get into ice cream just a little bit in this episode. Plus, Tucker and I are going to talk about homegrown produce right at the beginning. Sit back, enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
So my wife has quite the garden in our backyard. She grows a lot of stuff, but she loves to grow tomatoes. And we eat tomatoes, but not enough for the 15, 16 tomato plants we end up with.
Right.
And recently she put a box at the edge of our driveway that said free heirloom tomatoes, and people could come and take them. And I am amazed at the number of people who drive by fresh produce and would come back and grab it. And I think it's just one of those things in my life I take for granted, is the fact that during the summer, especially in August, I get to enjoy fresh produce out of our garden.
Right.
And not everyone has that ability.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never been to a farmer's market, you should go to one. You should go and check out what they're growing locally. You should find out. This last summer, I found out about an amazing pepper. It's called the Shishito Pepper. And I am in love with this thing. Here's the deal. You get the Shishito Pepper. It looks kind of like a jalapeno pepper, but it's a little thinner and spindly. You just cut it open, pull out the seeds, and then pop it in a frying pan and just kind of roast it a little bit on each side. Little salt, little pepper, boom. It's a great appetizer. It is amazing. This stuff is so good. I can eat it with eggs. I can put it on a sandwich. I could eat it next to a steak. These Shishito peppers are amazing, and they're not hot. They're spicy and sweet. And
sounds like zesty to me.
Zesty. Yeah, you could probably get away with saying zesty.
Okay.
So, and I could eat them raw, or I can eat them like cooked. Now, they're too thin-skinned to actually can.
Okay.
So one of the reasons I like the Shishito pepper so much is it has a different flavor profile than I'm used to. And some people who have only ever eaten, let's say, baby carrots, only know what baby carrots, like, you're going to be amazed at what a garden carrot actually tastes like. Is there a particular vegetable that you are fond of and you've tried in many different ways?
I mean, I like broccoli a lot, but
Yeah?
I think broccoli, it really comes down to how you prepare it. Once I found out that you can bake broccoli and make it nice and crispy, I think that's my favorite way to, put some butter on it, fry, or, bake it up and get it nice and crispy. So it's crunchy, because crunchy as a texture, I guess, is something that really,
dig that.
It amps up the food for me.
I'm a big fan of like cauliflower, like turning it into buffalo. So you cook the cauliflower the way you'd regularly cook it without steaming it, so that it gets tender, but it's not fall apart. And then you toss it in buffalo sauce the way you would a buffalo wing. It's amazing. You can also cut thick slabs of it and cook them like a steak on the grill. So every now and then when I have a vegetarian, I'm like, I'll make you a cauliflower steak next to my delicious, ribeye.
Right.
Food is just one of those things that you undoubtedly have a unique relationship with, that's like a fingerprint. Your relationship to food is different than my relationship to food.
Yep.
And so if you've never tried homegrown produce, and by homegrown, I mean essentially take out the middleman. Right. It hasn't been shipped from another part of the country, but grown in the soil that you step on every day with the nutrients from the rain that falls on your same head, you are going to be amazed at what is available out there to eat. And I'm always jealous of people who live in southern states who get to have citrus fruit trees outside, because my grandfather had an orange tree and a lemon tree. And so when he'd make himself something, he need lemon, he'd go pick a lemon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is friggin' awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
It makes me want to maybe spend more time on a farm.
Sure.
I don't want to do the work,
Right.
but I want to do
You
the
just wanna have
eating that they
access
get.
to the produce coming from the ground.
And you'll love this. Our guest today could play a farmer anytime he wants.
In fact, he has.
He has.
Yeah.
Plus, his career has involved farming and farm implements.
Right.
Throughout the years. It's Scott Horvik, who I've wanted to have on the show for a long time. I'm over the moon about this episode. Not only do I get some really great laughs out of it, but I also use a phrase that Tucker really loses it
This
during.
is the second hardest I've laughed on this show. The first hardest was when you broke through that chair on our first Sally Jacobson episode. This is probably the second most hardest.
I'm glad that you've got that in there.
Yeah.
And Scott is an actor, an awesome human being, and we go all over the place with this.
Scott's one of the founders of Theater B.
Yeah.
Theater B was founded by the Wintersteins, the Horviks, and Amber Ray. And, Scott and Lori moved out to the Twin Cities a couple of years ago, so they haven't been in town doing art. But if you've been watching plays in Fargo for a while, you've seen Scott on stage, I guarantee it. Fantastic actor, even better human being.
And we even make him do one of the lines he's most famous for in local advertising. So enjoy this episode with Scott Horvik. It's a great episode if you're on your way to the lake or if you're going to pick a pumpkin somewhere. So enjoy.
JJ Meets World.
Our guest today is Scott Aardvark from Scott Horvik is the guest today. Scott, welcome to the JJ Meets World virtual studio. You are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but Tucker and I are in Fargo, North Dakota.
That's crazy.
The miracle of technology, isn't it? Like when you really think about it.
It is. It's super cool.
Have you thought what it would be like if the pandemic had hit like in 1993 and what we would all it would be nuts.
I'd be burning through a bunch of VHS tapes.
Do you think we would be doing things like this? Like there would have been a rush on those old school giant VHS camcorders, and instead of having Zoom meetings, your boss would tape a presentation in like his or her basement and then make copies of the tape, and then everyone would receive it in the mail. And so you were always 4 days behind on meetings, but you'd have to sit and watch that on the one TV that was probably in your house.
93, I was doing radio in 93.
Oh, well, then you would have been an essential employee.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. That's when, I think that's when, that must have been around when my wife, Lori, was going to grad school and we were in DeKalb, Illinois. So I was working mornings, and we didn't have cable hooked up at our apartment when we first moved there. So I had a bunch of old episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yes.
On VHS. So we watched that for like about a week before we got cable.
So you could watch Star Trek: The Next Generation on broadcast?
Well, we could watch it because I had taped it when we were in Fargo before we moved to DeKalb, Illinois.
Scott.
So that was exciting for Lori.
Let's tell the people, the listeners of JJ Meets World, a little bit about who you are. Would you explain, give us the elevator pitch of your life story?
Yeah, what is Scott Horvik?
What is Scott Horvik?
I am the youngest of 4 kids of immigrants. So I'm first-gen American. My parents immigrated to the States from Norway. Dad came in like 1948 to go to North Dakota Agricultural College. I think my mom came a couple of years later because she didn't want to lose her boyfriend to an American girl.
Always a danger.
And the plan was to move back to Norway, but after my father had finished his undergrad And then he got his master's degree in electrical engineering at NDAC. He decided to stay in the States because there was more opportunity. And then he ended up teaching at NDSU for 24 years in the physics department, and had a small business. So he had a travel agency, so they could, get home cheap. So
Wait, hold on. So a physics professor as well as a travel agent.
yeah, he had a side business as travel agency, Horvik Travel Service. I think there's still a Horvik Travel in Detroit Lakes.
That is an
And then,
amazing combination of things to put together.
Oh, he's an electrical engineering major, so he had his. That's what he got his undergrad and his master's in. He came to Fargo Moorhead because his uncle had a electric motor company in Moorhead, Horvik Electric, which is like when you go across the Main Avenue Bridge, the building that had. Oh man, what's in that building? Right on the right-hand side. When you're coming into Moorhead.
Like
It says
Rustica?
L&L. It had like L&L Electric on the side of it. You can faintly see it when you drive in. It had Kirby's in it, right?
Oh, okay. Sure.
So anyway, and then so I'm a Fargo kid, born and bred, raised, and went to school my whole life in my same elementary school district on the north side of Fargo. And then, I started off being an electrical engineering major at NDSU. I had in high school I had taken junior ROTC, so I had was interested in serving in the military. My senior year of high school, I was in track, and I had an accident pole vaulting and busted my neck, which they didn't know that it was busted for like 3 months. And then at that point, I had an appointment to the Air Force Academy, and after they found out that my neck was broken, that kind of all disappeared.
You know what's amazing, Scott, is my dad was on a very similar trajectory where he did track and field, and he broke his leg on in a pole vaulting accident.
Oh yeah,
and it changed the course of his life forever. Just because, like everything he had planned, I think he was going to play basketball in college, and they're like, "Nope, not anymore." So he's like, "Oh well, I guess I'll go into the snack food business." That old chestnut.
Well, and Scott, you still have some limited mobility in your neck, right? I mean, I know you're not like you can't move your neck, but it's a bit stiffer. I just recall you having sort of like a Michael Keaton Batman neck, where you often will turn your whole body when you're going to look at someone.
When my neck broke, they your spine is like they're discs with like a little notch that sticks up through all the discs except like your very top one. That's just the disc. So no, your very top one does it. So I broke it's called the dens. So it's the very top one. So there was like nothing that was holding my skull on top of my head. So those are like ones that guys get when they dive into a shallow pool or something. Usually that's a kind of a break that they get.
So
anyway,
was it possible? Like, I mean, could something small like getting rear-ended or like going water skiing, I mean, could that have killed you in that time?
Yeah. If somebody would have popped their, hit my forehead, that could have, killed me or paralyzed me.
God, I'm always hitting Tucker's forehead.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a good thing he's not pole vaulting.
That we're aware of, yeah.
Did you pull a Kerry Strug, though? Like, did you get up immediately, like, after your pole vault and, like, stand up and everyone cheered for you?
No, it was, like, the second time that I had been hauled away in an ambulance at a track meet. When I was a sophomore, I turned too soon and stalled the pole out, and I landed in the box, except my head hit the mat, and they hauled me off from that. And then when I was a senior, then the pole, I went up and I was not necessarily in control of the pole, and it flipped me off to the side, and I landed on my head off to the side on the cement by where the standard was, and I was out. And then I remember them loading me into the ambulance, and seeing I remember seeing a couple of girls from on the girls track team looking at me like they were hauling away a dead person. I was like, that's crazy.
Whoa. Did you give them the thumbs up or anything? Like,
no, I waited a little while before I tried to move my feet because I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. But they moved, so I was like, okay, cool. But the brake was hard to find, so they didn't really. It was like in May that happened, and I pulled all the muscles on one side of my neck, and I had like a 2-inch cut on the top of my head, and so that I had an appointment to the Air Force Academy in like a month. I was supposed to go to basic. Stuff healed up. I went to physical therapy. Like I said, they missed that it was broken. So I went to physical therapy, and then it healed up to a certain point, and then it kind of stopped. And when I went to go to basic, they asked you if you did any accidents, and since I had been any incidents since you had been approved physically to go. I said yes. They went and did an x-ray, and he said, something's seriously wrong with you. You cannot stay. He said, if you stay through basic training, you'll die. So they sent me home. Then I finished doing some physical therapy, and it kind of stopped healing. And then I went in, and they took a couple of x-rays, and they were like, it's broken. Need to fix it on like Monday. So they fixed it.
whoa. Okay, so that takes us up to not serving in the United States Air Force. Did you try the Canadian Air Force?
Yeah, it was a beautiful try, beauty, to go to Canada. Yeah, no, I looked into what things were. The break that I had would medically DQ me from military service. So
what'd you do after that? I mean, now the world is your oyster, right?
Well, so I had, I had always thought like engineering would be cool. My dad was an engineer. My sister was an electrical engineer. My other sister was an architect. So I was like, well, let's do that. My whole thing was to go to the academy and be a pilot. And then I was like, well, that's not going to happen. And then, so I just kind of took some engineering classes, and I don't know, it wasn't as cool as I was. Well, it was interesting. I liked it. I wasn't necessarily my big cup of tea. And then I thought, wow, I'll take an acting class for shits and grins. Right. And, kind of got hooked. And then it took me like a year took me a while before I actually switched my major. So I ended up being a theater major at NDSU.
What a weird saying, shits and grins, because I can't remember the last time that I was like full on smiling while taking a Duke.
I do. It was about 5 minutes ago for me.
You were smiling though?
I was having a great time.
Like I'm usually sweating a little bit, and I'm probably making more of like a tight-lipped, cheery O face of like, ooh, like more than anything.
Sometimes you just feel so good when it's done.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to power through it, but sometimes it's the highlight of the day.
Well, maybe the saying should be like, "Oh, I did it for shits, then grins."
I guess. No, I'd never actually sat and pondered that phrase before.
Well, and so it's interesting because I don't necessarily know it as that phrase. I know it as shits and giggles.
Oh.
Which makes even less sense.
Yeah, because giggling, I've never giggled while I was doing that.
Now I have, because like if there's another person I know in the bathroom and I make noise in the stall, I will think, I wonder if Tucker's smiling right now because this, I've made a funny bathroom noise. And I've I've had bathroom laughs that are wholly inappropriate.
Now, Scott, was this NDSU you were at, or were you at a different school?
No, we're talking about poop, Tucker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
No.
yeah, but pooping happened there
Okay,
too.
just don't let me forget to get back to it.
Sounds
Keep going.
good. Were you at NDSU
yeah.
at this point, or what school were you at?
Yeah, I was at NDSU.
So is this where
Yeah.
you met Lori?
Yep. We're in the theater department. That's where we hooked up.
Give us that meet cute. I want to know what it was like when you and Lori first met. So just for a little bit of backstory for everyone who's listening. So the theater company that I'm a member of, Scott and his wife Lori are two of the founding members of Theater B. And so when I first even heard about Scott, Theater B was already a thing in town. Scott was doing a play called The Guys, which was about a firefighter who has to come up with eulogies for his fallen fellow firefighters after 9/11. And Theater B actually performed it in the Fargo Firehouse here in town. And I went and watched it. It was Scott Horvik and Carrie Winterstein, who's been on JJ Meets World before a couple of times. And I instantly fell in love with Scott Horvik because his acting was so flipping phenomenal. And that was when I found out, there's this company in town called Theater B. And it was started by the Wintersteins and the Horviks and Amber Ray. And you got to see more of their stuff. So I want to hear about how you met Lori at NDSU, because that is a pivotal moment in the formation of the theater company that I have now been a member of for 13 years.
Well, we had a class together. I think it was it was a directing, acting, and directing class. So we had met that way, and I remember, going out to the bar one time to the it must have been to the OB, and we went out, and Lori looks young, so me, friend Mike, and Kimball had gone out to the bar and ran into Lori, and I think Lori had a couple of Long Island iced teas. And she came up to us and she's like, I normally wouldn't talk to you guys all the time, but I've had a couple, and I just want to come over and say hi because you're in my acting class. And I remember turning to my buddy Mike. He's an older than average student, and I was like, is she old enough to be in the bar? Because it was 21 at the time in Fargo, right?
Uh-huh.
So this was after, yeah. Anyway. So we had met there, and then we had done some directing scenes together too. I remember we had to practice a kiss at one point, and we were in the back hallway at NDSU, and it was like, well, let's get this over with. Just do the kiss, and then we won't have to worry about doing it it's just like break the ice kind of thing. So Lori gave me a kiss in the back hallway and knocked me into one of the garbage cans that was back there. I wasn't expecting it to be that aggressive, I guess.
She is the silverback.
So
whenever you see a garbage can, do you think of your wife kissing you?
I do. Yep. It's like one of those, the R2D2 kind of looking ones that you can push the top on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know that garbage can. I know it too well for garbage.
At first I thought you were saying the emotional power of the connection of the kiss just floored you, but no, you're saying she leapt at you.
The explosiveness of the kiss kind of pushed me back into the garbage can. I wasn't expecting it to be that.
That's a great first kiss story, though. Instead of it just being, we were on a date and then we had our first kiss. It was like, no, we were rehearsing for a play. We weren't even a couple, but we had to do this kiss. And then my soon-to-be wife knocked me into a garbage can.
Yeah, exactly.
I also like how you indicate that your wife can't hold her Long Island iced teas as well.
Yep. Yeah. I'm glad you picked up on that one, JJ.
I can't even think of when I met you, Scott Horvik, but you're one of those people who I feel like people are immediately drawn to because you have the generosity of time and attention that you give to people. And
well, thank you.
I remember like talking with you, and you didn't have to, listen to what I was saying, but you listened and then you commented, and I was like, I like this Scott Horvik guy. And I was like, I gotta tell Tucker we need to be around him more often. And then at one point you moved like a block away from me, but I never really saw you that much, even though we lived a block away from each other.
We did, yeah. Lived just around the block.
Yeah. They just so you know, the little church that's right there on 17th Avenue that you were kitty corner from, they now have a big community garden in the lawn space of the church. And so it's neat to see people growing stuff right there. Because I always felt like the parking lot of that church went just far enough back that you could probably get caught smoking cigarettes behind the dumpster, or there are some kids who are probably using it as like a neighborhood hangout, but now it's a garden.
Well, that's nice. And the person who bought my house painted it.
Yeah, big time. They painted everything. It's
not the Barney house anymore.
Mm-mm. Now it is a clearly someone ate yellow curry and had an upset stomach colored house. Also, that house. I
was thinking that in my head, but I wasn't gonna say it out loud. But now we all know. Yep, I agree with you. It's a weird color.
How many houses have you lived in your life?
Oh, before I met Lori, one.
And then after, a lot?
Oh, man.
Let's put it this way. They've moved about as many times as I have.
So when we got married and had an apartment, and then Lori went off to grad school, and then we came back to Fargo, and we were living in a duplex. And then she's like, hey, we should buy a house. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And in my head, I was like, who would ever lend us money to buy a house? Because we're not making a lot of money, and I don't see that happen. But sure, if you want to, go ahead, talk to the bank. We'll see what happens. Next thing I knew, we lived in a house, and it was kind of a fixer-upper. So that was down by your neighborhood on the south side of Fargo. Then we bought a house on the north side of Fargo. And then we bought a house on the south side of Fargo. And we bought a house a little further south on the side of Fargo, like 2 more blocks down. That was the one, the purple house. And then we moved to Roseville, Minnesota, and we had a house there. And now we're in a condo downtown Minneapolis.
That's kind of, it's kind of fun because you've had the great ability of calling so many places home that I bet you've had some really unique and fun relationships with neighbors over the years. And then also like just knowing like, oh, this grocery store was when I lived in North Fargo with Tucker, in Tucker's father's house for a brief amount of time. I should preface this with, he told us he was moving to Florida, and so the house was supposed to be ours, and then he moved to Florida and then came back. So I did end up living with Tucker and his dad for a long time. But I got used to a whole new grocery store, a new post office. Moving to me is kind of fun, but I hate doing it. I'm bad at it.
Here's the thing about the north side of Fargo is most everybody shops at Hornbacher's on the north side. So that's just, you see everybody, you know everybody. I'm assuming that's where you shopped. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you shopped at the...
I don't think he would have gone to that Sun Mart on University.
The Sun Mart on University. No, I went. You're correct. I went to the Hornbachers on North Broadway.
I begged groceries at that Hornbachers for 9 months when I was in junior high school.
Really?
Because that felt like the only employer in town, at the time. Because
for a young man?
Yeah, I'd grown up on the north side, and the only place I knew was Hornbachers, basically, or any of the fast food places, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, growing up on the north side of Fargo, there's Hornbachers, and there was Northport for the longest time. Man, that's where we hung out, like in junior high or whatever. That's where the video games, where I can't even remember the name of the place that we hung out with and played video games. That was all up in there.
Do you know the
And
North
now I
Fargo?
don't even know what's up there.
North Fargo has one of the few remaining sit-down Pizza Huts in the country.
Oh yeah, Spent many a time in that Pizza Hut.
Every now and then when I was doing summer theater at Trollwood, you would think I can make it to Pizza Hut and back during the lunch hour if I have the buffet. And we did, and then there are other times where we did not make it back in time, and I would get in trouble.
Scott, were you playing at Giovanni's? Because Giovanni's Pizza was my favorite pizza place in North Fargo for the longest time. And that used to be right behind Ben Franklin Junior High School, not Ben Franklin Crafts.
Yep.
And so, and that place had a bunch of pinball, had Pac-Man, had a few other games there, and then pool. And then you could get Giovanni's Pizza there, which I still miss to this day. Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking. I know where you're talking about, and I think that was like, man, what was that at one time? I think it was like an old Stop and Go or something.
Yeah.
Before the Stop and Go moved on by Broadway.
Yeah.
No, this was a different place. It was. Man, how do I describe it? It's in Northport. There was the Ben Franklin, and then if you went north of the Ben Franklin and like took the turn on the L, right?
Oh yeah.
At the spot there was like a spot that was there that had like a video game place for, I don't know, it wasn't that long. Maybe it was a couple of years. Maybe it was longer. We only hung out there for like a couple of years, right?
Because Videoland was there. Was in one of those spots. Videoland was in two different spots. That at one point was a Costco haircutters, and there was All-Star Video there as well. I believe there were two video places right across the street.
Yeah, I bought a TV from there. I remember that All-Star Video. I had to do. I was like in acting class at NDSU, and I was going to do there was a Saturday Night Live script. So they had done Saturday Night Live had published like a bunch of their skits in this book that my sister had.
Which is amazing. I had that same book, and I can't. What a great way to make money off of something you've already done, right?
but it was. What did they have on the cover, JJ? Wasn't it what the host was? Generalissimo Francisco Franco.
Yep.
And that was the big joke that they had on the news all the time was that Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead. And so in that, they had the Norman Bates School of Motel Management. So I did that monologue, that little thing that they did. I used that for a monologue in acting class because I had no idea what I was doing when I first started doing theater, like, because I hadn't read any plays. I hadn't done any play probably since middle school for like, I think I was a guard in Robin Hood. And so I didn't have any clue as to where to find anything. So like I found that. And so I remember going to it was like the All-Star Video or something up in Northport and hanging out with a buddy of mine who was working there. And I was like, yeah, I need to see, what's the movie called? Psycho. And he's like, hey, yeah, we'll put it in. And then you can just like watch it and hang out in the store. So that's what we did. We watched Psycho in the store, popped in the VHS. That was awesome.
They give away the ending before you saw it, or did you already know what the ending was?
No, I didn't. I don't think I knew. No. And then I remember when that place closed, I ended up buying like this big ass TV from there that was, a big tube TV, and the knob to turn it on and off didn't work right. It was like $25. and I had to use a pair of needle nose pliers in order to turn on and off the TV. I had that thing for years. That was awesome. Best $25 I ever spent.
Best day ever, right, Scott?
Oh yeah, that was.
That's Scott's catchphrase is best day ever.
That day just kept on going and going. Oh yeah, that was $25. Best $25 I ever spent.
Hey Scott,
that was like the best day ever.
What do you think is the phrase that is opposite of speed up?
Of speed up?
Yeah, what's the opposite phrase of speed up?
I'm just going to say slow down.
Oh, that's a catchphrase I use when I think of you.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I think
that's a fun gig.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. That
people
was all
probably
Dave
recognize
Hansen.
your voice.
Dave Hansen, he's the one. So what JJ's talking about, I'm the talking orange for the North Dakota Department of Transportation. And we went to go shoot this ad, and I had to like put orange makeup on my face because they were going to plaster my lips onto this orange. And Dave Hansen goes, do it like this, go slow down. So I did, and the rest is history. It's beautiful.
You know what I think is interesting about that is obviously, so you're the talking orange, like the fruit, but they didn't,
Right.
Not like a cone or like a vest or anything, because the last thing that I associate with North Dakota highway safety is the fruit, the orange, since it doesn't grow natively here, nor do I see a lot of construction workers consuming them on the job. But now, after that campaign, I think about it all the time. I'm like, oranges in the highway system, hand in hand.
It was a good campaign. I like that one. That's pretty funny. Plus, I got a couple bucks out of it.
Yeah, I guess you've had a pretty good local Fargo career in advertising, both in TV and in radio, right? Like, I bet there are people who've seen you in all sorts of ads and wouldn't realize that was a Scott Horvik performance.
Yeah, no, I had a good relationship with the guys at H2M when Dave was there working on stuff. And his house he lived in our neighborhood, right, JJ? Not
Yeah.
that far down the block from us when he was there. So there was a time where I was unemployed there for a while, and I was, I ended up like applying for unemployment, and then I would get like a couple of casino ads or something, and then I would be like, oh, made too much money. No, I'm not going to get any unemployment. Just end up being a pain to do that. But yeah, I did like a couple of casino ads, did some stuff for Kroll's Diner, North Dakota Lottery, and then did some other TV stuff. That was radio stuff that I was talking about before. But yeah, no.
Let's talk about, because I don't think we've really had someone on who's done a lot of like local commercial work. People always ask me, they're like, wow, you must have gotten so much money from doing those Bell Bank bad banker commercials. And I would tell them the same thing. I was like, I got paid once for, what turned out to be hours and hours and hours worth of work. Very little.
Yep.
But it's nice that you think that I am the Tom Hanks of the area. I'm not even Frank Hanks, his brother.
Hey, it was me, you, and Lori in that one bank ad, wasn't it? The buckets of there's like bags of money or something to loan.
No,
Maybe I'm totally wrong on that.
You've been in so many local commercials, Scott. I think you're just crisscrossing them in your mind now. They're all blending together.
Uh-huh.
The funny thing is that, I work at H2M now. I am the video production department here, and I go through our archives, and I swear once a month I go, oh, hey, here's Scott. Oh, hey, here's David. Oh, hey, here's Carrie. Oh, hey, here's Cameron. Oh, hey, here's Crystal. Oh, hey, here's Pam. I keep coming up against finding my whole Theater B family and just littered in all these commercials.
Yeah, no, I mean local. That's fun. I mean, they're fun to do, and it's and it just kind of comes in waves. Whether you're going to be able to get something done, or whether you do something and then all of a sudden you're on too much, and then nobody, you don't get in anything for several years, and it just happens. Trying to think of
Let's let the listeners.
That's kind of what happens.
Let's let the listeners know the secret of residuals for local commercials.
Oh.
Scott, how much money do you get when because every now and then I notice companies will pull a commercial out of the archives and play it again. How much money are you getting when they replay that commercial 5-6 years after you made it?
Let's talk about the Red Hawks as they were coming up on this year. So I was working at KFGO at the time, and there was snow on the ground, and they're like, "Hey, Scott, you should come and we'll do this commercial." So we went and shot this commercial, and I got paid, I don't know, a little bit of money, And then this year they ended up kind of re-releasing several of those videos that I had made, those commercials that I had made, because it was coming up on the anniversary of the Red Hawks. And I got, oh man, let me think about that. $0. Nothing. No such thing as residuals.
Right.
Yeah. It's a buyout. So depending on what market you're in, Fargo Moorhead is like a buyout market. So they'll just pay you like once and that's it. And they can use it your spot in perpetuity.
I've done only one commercial that had a clause in it for residuals. And it was a Campbell's soup commercial that was meant to only air online. And I was supposed to be a dad. So I've got a shopping cart and I'm in the grocery store and I'm looking at two different types of soup. One is supposed to be like the generic and one is the Campbell's. And in my mind, which is the voiceover, I'm supposed to be thinking like, okay, they both say chicken noodle soup, but what's this, what makes it soup? If I put meat in water, does that make it soup? And then back and forth, and I go like, it's like, I'm just going to go with what I know. And then I put a can of Campbell's into the cart, right? So I spend the longest recording session of my life. I give each line 60 different readings. And then when I saw the final commercial, they didn't even use my voice. They cast some other dude. There's this kind of like, this like dumber, gruffer, like, what makes it soup? Is it because it's got food in it? And I was so pissed when I saw that. But I received, so
they were like, at some point, a producer was like, they did a cut with your voice. And they're like, you know what? He doesn't sound as dumb as he looks.
Yeah, we need a much dumber voice that matches his stupid face. This friggin' idiot who can't decide what soup he wants. So it airs.
The dumb demographic is big on our soup.
So I know that it aired like on Hulu. It was one of the ads that played on Hulu. And I mean, I think I made a couple $100 for the actual shoot. And then I got one residual check for 18 cents.
Yes.
So they must have aired it another 100 times later on. And so I got a check for 18 flippin' cents.
Yep.
But you know what?
There you go.
It was an exciting check to cash for 18 cents. I was like, it cost them more to mail this check to me than I made off of it.
Yep, exactly.
Probably cost you more in gas to drive to the bank to deposit the check.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't ride my bike. I don't ride my bike to the bank because they don't take you seriously when you pull up on a bicycle.
These aren't those N64 at Kmart days.
Or needing to get construction paper because the project was due.
Yeah.
Scott, let's talk about theater real quick.
Okay.
If you had to pick like 3 roles that really stuck to your bones, that you're like, I'm really proud of the work I did in this. It maybe changed me a little bit being in this production. Think you can pick 3 roles? Because you've had a lot of them over the years.
Oh man, now you're going to have to have, well, The Guy sticks out as like one that, that was one of those scripts that we did that show 3 years after 9/11 had happened. And we were just going to do it as a staged reading. And Carrie and I had worked. So we were, when Tucker went and saw that show and we did it in the fire hall, it was, we were on book for that.
Well, it was cool, just to pause for 1 second on this, because it was such an experience to watch that in the firehouse. And I forget who did the curtain speech, but they just said, listen, we are in a firehouse right now and they are on duty. So it's possible that something might happen during the show where we have to pause the show and the firefighters have to come through and get their gear and roll out just in case a fire happens. And lo and behold, that happened about halfway through the performance. Like everything had to stop because I remember if there was like a bell going off or what, but I watched firefighters come like down the pole and into the room, and they got in their fire truck and they took off in the middle of the performance. And then we picked up the performance right after that. So it was a very transformative night for me, both because of that, but also because I got to watch Scott and Carrie perform.
Well, it's a script that it's a brilliant script, and it came out at a time where um, uh, the city of New York needed to heal, and they weren't sure. I mean, the Flea Theater is the theater that originally produced it, and it was one of those shows where firefighters would take their family to or their girlfriend to and go, "This is what it's like." And I always get choked up just talking about it because it's a great script. It's um, uh, written from it was an actual fire captain that got interviewed by the person for the show, and I think it went together really quickly. And um, no, it's a very powerful script, and at the time it was a healing script, and then it's moved on to being more of a historical document that as time goes on. But yeah, that was a really that was a transformative piece in order to do that. You just wanted to get it right because it spoke about real people, uh, the sacrifice that the first responders had made in order to get into the towers, and just what a tragedy it was for a fire captain to have to write so many eulogies, and something that they would normally never, or that it doesn't happen where you lose so many people at one time, and just that they needed help. Yeah, and it's always great working with Carrie. So there's that one. I guess I remember in college. Man, what was? You're gonna get me, JJ, because I'm gonna forget the name of the show. But I remember in college we were doing a show in the summer one time, and it was a drama, and just the fact where you're working on an intimate scene, and people are, you can sense that the audience is watching you. I remember one of those times that just everything clicked at a rehearsal, and the only person who got to enjoy the performance was the director. But it was one of those times where just like everything seemed to click into place, and everyone was just kind of in the moment and rolling. And that's a feeling that you always strive for, and as a performer, being able to ride that wave of the performance, and at the same time having the people in the audience appreciating that is always a rush and a thrill.
I think something that people don't realize about theater, if you're not a part of it, is how you can say the same line 20 times and get 20 different reactions from the audience based on what the weather was like when they walked in, based on what the national news had that particular day, based on who they're sitting next to. Everything changes. You know, when you sit in a movie theater and you watch a movie, and by no means am I trying to take away from the acting in a movie theater, but that experience is pretty much the same for everybody. You know, you sit down in this theater, you know, if you get up to go to the bathroom, you could always see, you know, the same movie the next day and catch that piece you missed. But the feeling when a crowd changes, I think it's a rush. It's a great moment.
Well, you know it. I mean, both you and I did Santaland Diaries, and just being up there by yourself, and there's an energy that you feed off of the audience that will help determine how the performance goes.
Would you like to know something about the Santaland Diaries that helped me get through it, that you directly had a hand in, that you have no idea about?
Sure.
So,
I mean, yes, yeah. I would like to know.
So, first and foremost, when Theater B approached me and they're like, "Hey, yeah, would you ever want to be in the Santaland Diaries?" My first thought was like, "No, I don't want to be in a one-man show. Like, I don't want everything riding on me. That's stupid. What happens if I am not good and all, and I'm bad? And luckily, some people at Theater B, Tucker included, convinced me, like, no, you'll love it. This will be a great show. You're gonna have a great time, and I certainly did. About a week after I was supposed to be off script, and I was mixing up chunks of the show. I had kind of like a nervous breakdown because I was like, I will never get these 90 pages set in stone. I will never be able to do this. And our stage manager was on top of me. Like, if I said an and instead of the, I got it in my script notes. My script notes looked like tax forms by the time I got them in the email the next day. She's like, you won't get these until noon tomorrow because there's so many tonight. So at one point, I'm kind of freaking out and I'm really worried about this. And, I was talking to Tucker about it, and Tucker said, like when Scott was doing the show, there were a couple of times during the actual performance where he skipped to like another chunk of the show, and then he went back and he did the other part, but you'd never know because he just was so good about like, oh, I got to get back and do. And I was like, oh, well, that makes total sense. As long as if I accidentally skip to this chunk of the show, I can save it. And Scott had done the same thing for himself before where he's like, no, the audience would never know except for you. And then whoever is in the booth sweating their hair out and pulling at the follicles. So it was because you did it, and you did it so gracefully that I was like, oh, maybe I can do this too.
Oh man, I remember there were 2 spots when we did that show. So the show is like a 90-minute show, just for people who aren't familiar with it, and it's a one-person show, which is, like you said, JJ, is terrifying because there's nobody to help you if you get lost. And I had one time where I was like, oh man, I don't know where I am. I have no idea. And I turned up stage and the lights turned red. And I went, oh, Satan. Yes. We're at the Satan spot. Okay. And then I had another time, and this is probably the one that Tucker was talking about, is I was just like rolling through whatever I was doing. And I got to a certain spot in the show, and I was like, in my head, this is what I'm thinking as I'm like spouting words out. Usually, when I'm saying these words, I have an elf costume on. I don't have it on right now. What the hell? What did I miss? I must have. Oh. I forgot the part where I put it on. Oh, I bet you I could do that right now. Let's just go back and do that part. And then we'll skip the part that I already did. And then we'll just go in there. That'll work. This is all while you're talking, doing something else. So, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, and the audience would never know,
And it's a play. It's not like it's brain surgery or anything. People are there just to have a good time and escape, and they're suspending their disbelief for all kinds of stuff. So,
I had 2 instances where I had to on the fly change something, and one of the first instances was like in the 3rd week. I come into the theater, the show has essentially begun, and I walk in through these doors where the audience had come in, and I see them, and I like panic and turn around, and I kind of slam the door open and get out of it just because I realize that people are looking at me. Well, when I slammed the door open, I got it caught, my hand caught, and I ended up like cutting open the side of my hand to the point of where like when I got into the hallway, I'm looking at it and it's already dripping blood. And so I get in and I'm like, okay, here's what happens. I go in, I say the first couple of lines, I cross, and then I take my coat off and then I set up some stuff in this area. So I take my coat off, and then I run backstage, and I can only imagine what they thought in the booth, because they're like, he never leaves the stage. What's going on? And so I went and I found a Band-Aid, and I shoved this Band-Aid on, and so I get through the first third of the show, and the Band-Aid is now falling off my hand because it's so full of blood. Then I find another moment where I'm making myself lunch, and I go and I get another Band-Aid and pop it on. And after the show, I mean, she was she was angry at me to begin with. She's like, what are you doing? Why are you messing around, screwing around with this? And I showed her, I'm like, I got a big owie. And like, the show had started. There's nothing I could do. You know, that's the nice thing. You're Three Musketeers. If you're D'Artagnan, you got 20 minutes during, you know, like the friggin' Count Richelieu or whatever scene. But my favorite of all was, so Tucker gave me this great freedom during Santaland Diaries to really like say, like, listen, the audience is the second person in this one-man show. And you're going to be out there. You're going to be interacting with them. You know, like, they are as big a part of this thing as you are. And so the show started. Now, I will say this, because I love to gloat, sold out. Entire run, sold out. Not a ticket to be had to Santaland Diaries. But that also means, because every show is sold out, we held the curtain almost every night, because you'll attest to this, I'm sure, Scott. If it says the show starts at 7:30, when you come to a play in Moorhead, Minnesota, people mean, oh, that means I should probably be there at 7:30. Not I should be in my seat waiting for the show to start at 7:30. So they held for two people who are yet to come in, and they had two seats on the aisle, second row for them, for when if they show up. I am like 8 minutes into the show, and this couple comes in very quietly, but they have to pass right by me because of the layout of the stage, and they sit down, and I look at the audience and I go, hold on 1 minute, everybody. And I'm like, hey guys, let's just get you guys caught up real quick on what's happening. And, you know, like, and so I was like, I am taking this job as an elf because I need work right now. And and I kind of just gave them like an abbreviated version of the stuff I had talked about. And then I turned to the crowd and I go, did I miss anything? And a lady in the back goes, you're obsessed with the Days of Our Lives. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm also obsessed with the Days of Our Lives, or Young and the Restless, whichever, or As the World Turns. And I was like, you got it? And like, they don't say anything. And I was like, I just stopped the show for you. Do you got it? And they're like, oh, yeah, we're good to go. And I'm like, fantastic.
With that show, like, I mean, obviously JJ's background is primarily in improv. And so we were going to lean into that with him, which also is nice for the show, because that means that every performance is going to be different, and that's cool. We're leaning into that. Of course, if you direct a show, once the show is up, it's no longer your show. It's now owned by the stage manager and the performers who are in it. You have no other part to play at that point. So like I watched the first couple performances and I was like, oh, thank God it's on its feet. It's great. Everyone's digging it. JJ's killing it. It's awesome. And so I remember I came back and watched a couple at the very end of the run. So this is like 4 to 5 weeks later. And I remember sitting in the audience being like, huh, that's new. Whoa, what's this? I don't remember this part. But they were all these scenes that JJ has started adding organically as he was getting like audience feedback as we went. And I loved it. I loved the fact that even I had directed the show and I'm watching it going, this is new, but I'm loving it. It totally fits with what we were doing. A one-person show is like a tremendous challenge, and sure, knock that off my bucket list.
Do you feel like that ever, JJ? Are you like, okay, one-man show, been there, done that, and let's move on?
Actually, you know who does it is my wife. She's like, you got it out of your system. You never have to do that again. So, and I was like, thanks, Jill. But truth be told, I accepted that role like 2 weeks after I got engaged to Jill, and we were like, let's get married like in 3 months. Let's not wait through the winter. So we were well into rehearsals, like a month into rehearsals when I had my wedding. And so Jill really was kind enough to like be like, okay, well, because she's not a theater person. And so, in fact, Jill, in all the plays I've ever been in, Jill's only ever come to them once. My Aunt Deb saw Santaland like 5 times.
She saw a lot.
And so, like, but Jill saw it once, like on opening weekend. She's like, "That was fun," and I was like, "Good. Do you think you'll come again?" No, no, I'm good.
But that's what coming to a show, watching a show at the beginning of a run and the end of a run is always cool.
Right. One of my favorite Scott Horvik performances is one where I actually didn't get to see you do it, but I listened to you do it every single night. I did like scene change and help with props on Sylvia. And that was a fun show to listen to.
Yeah, that was a fun show. That was really cool.
If the folks listening have never seen Sylvia, it's about a relationship between a man and his dog and his wife. And the dog is played by a person. In this case, it was Missy Teeters. And it's not an inappropriate relationship with his dog, but it's where it's sort of like he's saying things and telling things to the dog that he's not communicating to his wife. And you see how important the relationship it is for a man and this animal. And he should be telling these things to his wife. And the wife becomes jealous of the dog. And it was I also love the fact that in the Theater B hierarchy, you've got Carrie and David Winterstein, and then Lori and Scott Horvik. And I love it when you guys wife swap. When
in a show. In a show.
Well, I mean, if you're doing it in real life, I would love to be invited.
In a show.
But I love
Jesus, JJ.
Well, but I mean, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. I think it is
Tucker's going to fall off his chair, I think.
He's going to lose it. I think that those shows are great where David is in the show, but like in Sylvia, and he played several characters, but you and Carrie were the married couple in it. I get such a kick out of that. And I know
it's happened a lot.
Right, exactly. Have you ever played your actual wife's husband?
Yes, he has.
Yes.
What's that dynamic like?
Just it's like at home.
Is awesome. It really?
It is. He's right. It is the same.
Tucker's gonna need a moment to compose himself here.
No, we've done it several times.
My stomach hurts. Oh my god. Sorry.
See, he wanted to steer the conversation away from poop because he felt it was unprofessional, and now I'm trying to have a professional conversation. So
okay.
I see how it is. Okay, but I mean, is it? So
well, we played each other in the very first show. It was Carrie and David were a married couple, and Lori and I were a married couple.
Well, Vino Veritas, you were both. Vino Veritas was actually the one show where it was almost like the roles you played were written for you. Like you and Lori and David and Carrie were perfect in that show. And we actually have had a great relationship with David McGregor ever since then because of that show. But yeah. I mean, you do not have Theater B without the Wintersteins and the Horviks. There is zero question about that. And it's one of the reasons why I miss you guys, because you guys left Fargo. You're now in the Twin Cities, and move back here. Move back here, guys. I know it's not going to happen, but do it anyways.
I'm waiting to get back on stage again, as I think everyone is.
Yeah.
Do some stuff, meet some people. So done a couple of things down here in the cities, and looking forward to when the curtains go back up again to try and get out and do some stuff.
What's your favorite ice cream?
Oh, I'm boring. I'm a vanilla kind of guy.
What kind of vanilla? Because there's variations.
Yeah. I'm nothing fancy, so
French vanilla off the table.
Yep.
Old fashioned?
Sure.
Are you putting toppings on this thing? I mean, are you adding?
No, I just like eat the vanilla ice cream. I remember, or I will.
If I see a lineup of people and you're in it, Scott, and they're like, which of these people looks like they are the most milk toast, vanilla ice cream, but they let it melt a little bit before they even eat it because they don't want to, their mouth might get too cold. I would pick you out of the lineup every single time, but I would be so wrong every single time. And I think that's part of the charm of Scott Horvik is the fact that you don't even understand how lucky you are to be carpooling or to be in a grocery line with Scott Horvik until it happens and you're transported to another place. Here's why I say that. When Tucker made Mercedes Ray and asked you to play Abraham Lincoln in it, not only did you actually grow the chin strap beard, how long did you keep it for him?
Oh man. So yes. I didn't think that the actual dye would work. So when I said, "Hey, we're going to dye your hair black," I was like, "Go for it." It was the same attitude when Lori said, "Hey, let's buy a house." I was like, "Right on. Let's do it."
It was basically like, I dare you to try.
Yep. No, yeah. Because I think that I had tried to like dye my hair some color, and we had put some like women's hair dye in it, and it just didn't do it. Because my hair is very white and very coarse. So I didn't think it was going to suck up anything, but I was wrong. So I looked like Abraham Lincoln. And I had a beard and I shaved it. So I looked like Abraham Lincoln. And like after a week or two, my beard would start to grow out and there'd be like a white spot, like right by my face where the white hairs would grow out from my beard. So Tucker, I work for Rust Sales. I work for it's a short line agricultural implement dealership. And we have a big trade show that happens in the fall called Big Iron. And it's out at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds. It's like the second week in September.
Celebrating its 40th anniversary this year at the time of this recording.
I'll be there. And so I was out at Big Iron and I looked like Abraham Lincoln. And my boss was like, he was fine with it. He was like, he kind of chuckled about the whole thing. I did have a couple of customers come in and see me, and they just came in and saw me, and they were like, what the heck?
See, you would have thought that maybe it would have made you more endearing to like the Hooterite and Amish communities to be like, yeah, Dotman's got the beards.
We have to clarify something though here, and this is something I clarified when we had Amber on this show, who was the lead in Mercedes Ray. You dyeing your hair and cutting it that way was not my plan. That was Amber 100%. When we were first doing this, I was like, Scott's such a good actor and he's just so fun. It would be great to have him play Abraham Lincoln and we can just get him like a black wig and like one of those cheapo beards. Like it doesn't have to look that great. It can look like it's a costume. And Amber was the one who was going, no. He needs to dye his hair and we need to trim his hair so it looks like an Abraham Lincoln beard. And I even was protested a little bit. I was like, I don't think we need to do that. I mean, that's going to take a lot for continuity. And so she goes, no, we're going to get him to do it. So this was Amber's doing 100% of the way. And if you watch Mercedes Ray, the length of his beard changes from scene to scene because of that.
Scott, did they do anything? Did they do anything to your eyebrows? Like, did they darken your eyebrows, or did you have like your light, natural colored eyebrows, but then other Lincoln features?
We left the eyebrows.
Yeah, left the eyebrows.
Nice. Really suspend that belief.
You know, it was about a time traveler who was stealing American presidents.
And had a gorilla as a sidekick.
Which was how I finished the ending, but I didn't know how to end the movie.
And again, Lori played my wife.
Yep, that's right. She plays Mary Todd.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Scott, without a doubt, you're, I think, also one of the most interesting people because it seems like you know a lot about a lot of stuff. Like, do you watch a lot of documentaries? Do you read a lot of books?
I know a little about things. That's how I would put it. No, I'm not like a voracious reader. Lori's like Lori's knows all kinds of stuff. She's the smart one. I read a little. I don't read as much as I should. And when it comes to like doing scripts and stuff like that, I usually wait for people to say, "Hey, you'd be good in this role." And I'm like, oh, "Okay,
Ooh, sounds
I'll
good.
do it." Yeah, exactly. I'm one of those guys. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Very agreeable.
Whatever.
I bet you're great like at a barbecue, aren't you? Like they're like, you want some corn? Yeah. How about some potato salad? Sure.
Oh man, yeah, potato salad would be great. Why don't we just put the potato salad and the beans, all mix them together and put them on that hot dog? All goes to the same place anyway. Delicious.
That's what I'm talking about. That is the beauty of Scott Horvik. Scott, as we wrap this thing up here, is there a piece of advice that was given to you in your early years that has stuck with you? It doesn't need to be life-changing advice, but just something that at one point somebody told you that has kind of stuck with you over the years.
Oh man, JJ, I have no idea. I can't think of something off the top of my head. No,
really, no wisdom, no wisdom whatsoever.
I have no wisdom.
When I was learning to drive a car, I mean, we're talking about like I got my permit and I'm behind the wheel of a car for the first time ever. My mom said something that has stuck with me even to the point of where I used it just an hour ago before we started this recording, which was never back up farther than you have to. So the idea is that like when you're backing up a car, you're in less control than when you're going forward, just in, you know, the frame of vision, everything like that. And so I see people who will like back way up and then, you know, like kind of meander down a parking lot and then correct around. I will never back up farther than I have to. I will always keep things moving forward in my life.
Any piece of wisdom or knowledge that I think of will always be 2 hours after I've been asked a question.
Oh,
and I'll be like, oh man,
that's very fitting. That's very.
And I do
fitting.
remember the first time driving a car and putting my foot on the accelerator was probably one of the only times that I was like, oh my God, you just tap on this little thing and this huge piece of machinery moves. I remember being really kind of freaked out about that to begin with. You know, that's like a huge responsibility.
When you were teaching your daughter how to drive, did you teach your daughter how to drive or did your wife?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Kind of blanked that one out.
There's like just 3 months of terror for Scott.
I'm sure that we both did. I wanted to teach her how to drive a stick the whole time, like start on a stick. But I don't think she ever learned how to drive.
Hey, man, I've made it to 35 and I've never had to drive a stick. So
I see my mom was like, nope, we're going to teach you how to drive on a stick because even if you never use it again, you still have it. I've had to drive a stick 3 times in my life. Thank God my mom taught me on a stick because it was one of those manly moments in my life, which are very few and far between.
If someone was like, Tugger, you need to drive this car and it's not an automatic, I'd be like, I'm not a Flintstone. Like, I don't know how to do this. Well, let's just walk where we're going because I don't want the car to suddenly die because I didn't use the clutch correctly in the middle of the intersection or something.
I've always dreamt of getting my CDL license. Love to drive like a big rig at some point. Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
You just want to honk the horn.
Yeah. Well, it's technically you pull it.
You just want to pull the horn. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to pull it every time one of those kids makes the pull motion in the van next to me. I want to be the hero, the everyday hero on the interstate. But I'll always remember that when driving on the North Dakota interstate, I need to slow down.
Slow down. Yeah, that's right.
Scott Horvik, you're one of the greats. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure.
You are welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. talked a lot about poop in this episode, so much so that I think I need to